Live.
Shalom, TITHES Officer of 1,000 Yahanna, teaching a Monday night history class. Today we're getting into some of the archaeology, showing that the Bible is true and is real, which we already noticed, but this will help you, if you ever, just to help you to understand some of the things that happen, that the stuff that happened in the Bible is still signs they're showing that it did happen. All right. All right. You guys are? Everything good out there?
Yeah, come. Yeah, you're going to just go to drop the pipe.
All right. Has anybody ever heard of the SHALAM tunnel? The SHALAM tunnel. Or Hezekiah's tunnel? You ever heard of that before? Azar?
I didn't hear the question.
I said, have you ever heard of the SHALAM tunnel, or the tunnel of Hezekiah?
It sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar? All right. Let me see if I can get that. Can you go to 2 Chronicles 32 and 30 for me?
Come. You want to read it?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm waiting on you.
Come. 2 Chronicles 32 and 2. You said 32 and 30, right?
Yeah, 32 and 30, 2 Chronicles.
Okay, let's see. 2 Chronicles 32, 30. This same Hezekiah also stopped the upward water course in Yahanna and brought it straight down to the west side of the city of David. And Hezekiah prospered in all his works.
All right, you know what that means? You break that down for me. You know?
Well, if I may, it looks like, it has something to do with building a type of construction in the west side portion of David City. And, the Lord is with him. If I may, the Lord is with him. So, when he put his hands forth to do his work, it prospered.
Got it. Okay, that's a good breakdown. So, what it's saying is, okay. I'm going to give you a little bit more on it too. The scriptures didn't say this part necessarily, but I'll give you a little more. But, all right, you know how a siege of a city happens, right? Yeah, so basically how the Romans all the time used to do, they would go in and they would set troops all around the city that they want to take over and cut off their food and water supply, right? So Hezekiah, knowing this, him being, Israel, we very innovative, right? So what he did was, he said, you know what, I'm going to make a tunnel and we're going to take some of the water from Gihon and we're going to bring it over to the city of David so we can still get our water supply. You know what I'm saying? Because you know how they would normally do, somebody would come in and cut off the aqueduct or put a boulder in the path or whatever. But he said, no, I'm going to build like a secret tunnel where nobody really knows, you know, where it's at. And then that's how we're going to always keep our water supply, right? I got a few pictures of this. See if I can find it. I'll put it out. For those online, see if I can make it bigger. Can I make it bigger? I don't know why let me make it bigger, but for those online, this is some of the tunnel right here, right? And basically it would make it so that water can come in through one side and off the other. You see these are chisel marks right here, right? These were done with chisels, so they had men on both sides. So basically in this tunnel, he would have men on one side come in and men on the other side come in, and they would go and meet, and then when they met in the middle, that's when, you know, it will be completed, right? That's how you try to make the work faster. Because if you try to have one person go through the whole way, it's going to take longer, right? So you made them meet in the middle. They still, to this day, don't really realize, like, you have to think about it. For them to meet in the middle, they're going through like a whole building. Like, just imagine you going there, how you keep yourself balanced and level with each other, right? But they listen to the sounds where other brothers was chiseling that, and they was able to use math to go in and meet each other in the middle, right? So, as you can see right in there, they still got water coming through there, right? Still got the water supply. So they can feed, you know, keep water coming into the city, right? So, and that's what Hezekiah, that was one of the things that he wanted to build, because, you know, if you have like an aqueduct, something that's seen by everybody, your enemies can easily cut that off. But if you have it so that, you know, it's unseen, they don't know where it's at to cut your water supply off. All right? Let me see here. Okay, this is Shalom Tunnel. It says the newer Shalom Tunnel, also known as Hezekiah's Tunnel, is a water channel that was carved within the city of David in ancient times, now located in the Arab neighborhood of Sawan in eastern Jerusalem. Its popular name is due to the most common hypothesis that it dates from the reign of Hezekiah of Judah, and it corresponds to the conduit mentioned in 2 Kings 20 and 20 in the Hebrew Bible. According to the Bible, King Hezekiah prepared Jerusalem for an impending siege by the Syrians by blocking the source of the waters of Upper Gihon and leading them straight down the west of the city of David. By diverting the waters of Gihon, he prevented the enemy forces under Sennacherib from having access to water. Support for the dating to Hezekiah's period derived from the biblical text that describes construction of a tunnel, and to radiocarbon dates organic matter contained in the original plastering. However, the dates were changed in 2011. But you know, that's just a dating, so you know how those dating systems work. But it says the temple leads from the Gihon spring to the pool of Siloam. If indeed built up under Hezekiah, dates to a time when Jerusalem was preparing for an impending siege by the Syrians. Since the Gihon spring was already protected by a massive tower and was included in the city's defensive wall system, Jerusalem seems to have been supplied with enough water in case of siege even without this tunnel. So, you know, they basically, I'm trying to get to like the history of it. Let me see. The curving tunnel it's not like a straight tunnel, right? They curving through the whole way, right? The curving tunnel is 583 yards, about a third of a mile long, and by using now let's just talk about the inscription here. The tunnel was excavated by two teams. one starting at each end of the tunnel and meeting in the middle. The inscription is partly unreadable at present. It may have originally been conveyed more information than this. So it's just showing that, you know, they basically did this whole tunnel, like I said, to keep, you know, water supply in Israel. So how the Israelite engineers dealt with the difficult feat of making two teams digging from opposite ends meet far underground is not fully understood, but some suggest that the two teams were directed from above by sound signals generated by hammering on a solid rock through which the tunnelers were digging. So they still like everything that black people do, they still don't understand how we able to be as innovative as we are, right? So this shows that we built a tunnel that's turning and swiveling back and forth, and we was able to make the two ends meet, right? And still keep the water supply, because you know you have like a water supply, and certain things like this, you have to have it at like a certain level. Like if it's too low, the water will pool up, it won't come down as effective. If it's too steep, it will come down real slow. So it's like a certain degree that you have to have the water even to come in so it can fill up the pools, right? So it's just like you have to have a way that it comes, when it comes in, it goes out, because you know it's for the pool, so people are just washing and bathing, right? So we have to get rid of the, you know, soil water. You have to have all that, and this is what Israel was doing even in the early times. So that's how you know Israel always kept themselves clean, right? We weren't like the heathens, but we always believe, you know, they don't, you know, the only reason they want water is to drink. They don't believe in bathing with it, right? So let's see. Okay, the ancient city of Jerusalem, being on a mountain, is naturally defensible from almost all sides, but suffers from the drawback that its major source of fresh water, the Gihon Spring, is on the side of the cliff overlooking the Kidron Valley. This presents a major military weakness, as the city walls, if high enough to be defensible, must necessarily leave the Gihon Spring outside, thus leaving the city without a fresh water supply in case of siege. The weakness had been removed by the Canaanites, who built a very strong fortified tower around the spring and connected it to the city walls on a slope by an additional wall, which carried a well-protected corridor. A Canaanite tunnel already collected the spring water since around 1800 BC and led it southwards towards the bedrock, but it released the water unto the fields in the Kidron Valley through several openings and ended in the open reservoir, which allowing for important farming. This arrangement also made water available to besieging troops outside the city walls. The Bible says that King Hezekiah, fearful that the Syrians would lay siege to the city, blocked the spring's water outside the city and diverted it through a channel into the pool of Siloam. However, it is now known that the earlier waters, one shaft, had already been heavily fortified by the Gihon Spring. Okay. In 1899, the ancient channel also leaned from the Gihon Spring halfway to Siloam Pool area, but by a more direct route was found. This channel is now known as the Middle Bronze Age channel. So, like I said, it's just showing like just the tunnel, how it was all made and brought to, you know, to bring water. So, all right. Has anybody ever heard of the Lost Lunar Stone at all? The Lost Lunar Stone. Anybody heard that before?
Salakia.
Go ahead. You heard of the Lost Lunar Stone?
This is a stone that they found in the caves of North America with the Hebrew writing on it. Salakia, the one with the ancient paleo Hebrew writing.
Okay. And what was on there?
Salakia, the one.
Go ahead.
The Ten Commandments.
There you go, the Ten Commandments. This was made, it was found in Los Lunas. They called it the Los Lunas Decalogue stone. So, trying to see here. The first recorded, let me see. Oh yeah, I don't know, read this part too. The Los Lunas Decalogue stone is a large boulder on the side of a hidden mountain near Los Lunas, New Mexico, about 35 miles south of Albuquerque. That bears a regular inscription carved into a flat panel. The stone is also known as the Los Lunas Mystery Stone or Commandment Rock. The stone is controversial in that some claim the inscription is pre-Columbian and therefore proof of early Semitic contact with the Americas. But you notice how they real clever about their writing, right? They said that, go ahead.
What you just brought out is so heavy, you know what I'm saying? They don't give credit to the Israelites for being a seafaring people, you know what I'm saying? If I'm not mistaken, one of the Central American tribes was a seafaring people that, and our people are the first ones that were here in the Americas anyway, and we were doing trade back and forth, you know what I'm saying, from here back to, you know what I'm saying, to what we know of the African continent today, you know what I'm saying. So for them to sit there and say that it was a comedic thing, that we already know that's not right. The commission.
No, it said
more pictograph.
No, it says Semitic. It didn't say Kemetic. What I was trying to bring out was that they won't let the Indians be Semitic. You know what I'm saying? They won't let us be Semitic. They just gonna say it was contact with early Semitic in the Americas. You get what I'm saying? But that shows that somebody here was speaking Hebrew, right? Which was the Native Americans. They were speaking Hebrew. But they won't let the Native Americans, they can't be Hebrews. They can't be Israelites. You get what I'm saying? All right. Now the first recorded mention is the stone. This is in 1933 when Professor Frank Hibben, an archaeologist from the University of New Mexico, saw it. According to a 1996 interview, Hibben was convinced the inscription is ancient and thus authentic. He reported that he first saw the text in 1933. At the time, it was covered with lichen and patination and was hardly visible. He claimed he was taken to the site by a guide who claimed to have seen it as a boy back in the 1880s. However, Hibben's testimony is tainted by charges that at least two separate incidents he fabricated some or all of his archaeological data to support his pre-Clovis migration theory. What was that pre-Clovis? But like pre-Clovis was like it was talking about somebody being here before, or like it's like a ancient Paleo-American culture. So they don't want it to be that like I said, they feel like he fabricated it because he wanted to support his pre-Clovis migration theory. That he basically saying that there was the migration over here before, like Christopher Columbus came. They don't want to support that because they don't want to say that they were, Shemitic or Israelites. They don't want to say that. Okay? The reported 1880s date of discovery is important to those who believe that the stone is pre-Columbian. However, the Paleo-Hebrew script, which is closely related to the Phoenician script, was known to scholars by at least 1870, thus not precluding the possibility of a modern hoax. So now they're trying to say it's a hoax because they don't want the Native Americans to get credit for having, speaking Hebrew. Because of the stone's weight of over 80 tons, it was never moved to a museum or laboratory for study and safekeeping. Many visitors have cleaned the stone inscriptions over the years, likely destroying any possibility of scientific analysis of the inscription's patina. Nevertheless, comparing it to a modern inscription nearby. So, this is a colleague, this is somebody, a geologist, George E. Morehouse, a colleague of Barry Farrell, and estimated that the inscription could be at least 500 and 2,000 years old, explaining its freshness and lack of patina, which is like dirt or whatever, and as being due to frequent scrubbing to make it more visible. In April 2006, the first line of the unprotected inscription was obliterated by vandals. So that just shows, like, it's just like a few things, like to show, like, we spoke Hebrew, man. Even Native Americans, they spoke Hebrew. A lot of people don't know about this stone here. That it was things here showing that the Native Americans spoke Hebrew. Here go another one right here. Anybody ever heard of Back Creek stone? The Back Creek stone. Anybody heard that before? All right. Okay. It's an inscribed stone collected as part of a Native American burial mound excavation in Loudoun County, Tennessee, 1889, by the Smithsonian Bureau of Ethnology Mound Survey. The inscriptions were initially described as Cherokee, but in 2004, similarities to an inscription that was circulating in a Freemason book were discovered. Hoax expert Kenneth Feeder says the peer-reviewed work of Mary. I'm trying to see if we need to read all this. So now this person is stating that it's a fraud, right? That this Back Creek was a fraud. So Thomas inaccurately identified the characters of the stone as beyond question letters of the Cherokee alphabet, a writing system for the Cherokee language invented by Sequoyah in the early 19th century. The stone became the subject of contention in 1970 when Semitist Cyrus H. Gordon proposed that the letters of the inscription are Paleo-Hebrew of the 1st or 2nd century AD rather than Cherokee, and therefore evidence of pre-Columbian transatlantic contact. According to Gordon, 5 of the 8 letters can be read as for Judea. Archaeologist Marshall McCusick countered that despite some difficulties, Cherokee script is a closer match to that on a tablet than the late Canaanite proposed by Gordon, but gave no details. I'm gonna do this real quick. See here, let's see something real quick. This is some let me see if I can get a better one. Hold on 1 second. So you see how they play games too with it. So you see how it shows, like, you can look right here for the Back Creek stone. You can obviously see that's Hebrew, right? I obviously see that's Hebrew. Right? That's the live, that's the, what's that? The,
My God, one.
go ahead.
Yeah, about to say about
That's
that.
what I thought.
Sean, check it
That's what I'm supposed to What's going on, Warden?
Not much out of one. Salakia.
Go ahead.
That Black Creek stone, is that the same stone that the heathen found and for like years and years they had upside down?
God,
They
yeah.
didn't know what it was because they were trying to read it upside down. That the same stone.
God, that's exactly the same stone. But it's written in ancient Hebrew, so they didn't know that, they are, but then once it became known that that's ancient Hebrew, and all of a sudden it's a hoax. So, because there was a big, if you want to get more information, I'm sure you can find what Captain Katasa talked about when it came down to the 12 tribes breakdown. Anybody watch that?
Salakia, sir.
Go ahead.
Counsel, if I may, I was just thinking about that. I watched it the other day when he brought up the Decalogue. When he said in Hebrew, the Lord's our God, the Lord's one. I got to go to my notes and say exactly what it says. But that's how they knew that, and that's why Columbus was heading that direction in the first place, because he knew that that's where the Israelites were. So
God, you know exactly what Israelites were. It's even it's known that that's how he found this land. Like, you can look it up, anybody ever heard of a man named Luis de Torres? Anybody ever heard of that name before? Never heard of that name before?
No, okay.
You never heard of it before?
What's that?
Luis de Torres. Alright. Let's put it right here. Luis de Torres. He died in 1493. He was Christopher Columbus's interpreter on his first voyage to America. De Torres was a converso, apparently born Yosef ben Halevi Hari, chosen by Columbus for his knowledge of Hebrew, Chaldaic, and Arabic. After arriving at Cuba, which he proposed to be was supposed to be the Asian coast, Columbus sent de Torres and a sailor, Rodrigo de Jerez, on an expedition inland November 2nd, 1492. Their task was to explore the country, contact its ruler, and gather information about the Asian emperor described by Marco Polo in A Great Khan. The two men were received with great honors in the village and returned 4 days later. They reported on a native custom of drying leaves, inserting them in cane pipes, burning them, inhaling the smoke, a reference to the use of tobacco. When Columbus set off for Spain on January 4th, 1493, Luis de Torres was among the 39 men who stayed behind at the settlement of La Navidad, founded on the island of Hispaniola, coming back by the end of that year. Columbus learned that the whole garrison had been wiped out by internal strife and by an Indian attack, which had occurred in retaliation to the Spaniards abducting native women. After a fact captured indigenous inhabitants testified to a returning Columbus expedition in behalf of a translator believed to be de Torres for attempting to prevent the violent acts. So he was trying to prevent all of this stuff that was happening, right? But then, some of the, the nasty Spaniards, they go, they're just going around and abducting their women, they just taking them. You know what I'm saying? That shows, you go back in history, that even shows, how the history of marriage even came about. Because the history, it was always marriage, but I mean, the marriage certificate. You get me? So, I'm getting a little bit off, but the marriage certificate came from when they was going to, they was coming into Europe. Romulus, which is who Rome is named after, he had a brother, I can't even think of his name. Romulus and his brother, they was going around like they was all the Romans. They was just going around taking the Japhetic women that was there. They were just taking them, right? And when they was just taking them, they started getting, like you had a problem with that. But you know how in the cultures of like, how you gotta think back in the days, like once you take a woman and lay with her, right? Her value has been diminished, right? Because she's not a virgin anymore, right? Well, a virgin by, sex, virgin, right? So she's no longer never been touched by a man. So they were like, you just took our women, you didn't pay for her, you didn't do anything. So what they did was they introduced the marriage certificates so that they could say, okay, well, if we take this woman, we're going to marry her. And then if, when this man dies, this rapist dies, the people get, riches back from it. But what always end up happening when you trust in, the oppressor's paperwork, what always happens? He reneges. He don't give you what he say he gonna give you, right? 40 acres of the mule, where's that at? Because all the promises we supposed to get, we didn't get it. Same thing happened to them. They lost everything. And they got kicked out of their land, and they got put into the, the islands of the Pacific Islands. They became the people the snow dog people. I can't never think of that name for some reason. They became them, right? Go ahead up.
A lot of y'all don't want that by me. The oppressor, the Edomites, they are treated breakers from they always been treated breakers. And the people, those people that you're talking about, they are the Samoans and the Pacific Islanders and some Australians.
Mm-hmm. The Samoans, I can't even think of the name of the sled dog people. I can never remember them. I always forget that name.
So like y'all
Go ahead.
You talking about the Eskimos?
Eskimos, there you go. They became the Eskimos. They had to get out of Europe because they got kicked out basically, and they got ran off of their land. So they had to go and stretch all out everywhere else. And then of course what happens? Your so-called oppressor, they become you. And all of a sudden they those people, I think Sabians was one of them too. The name of them, the Sabians beforehand. Nah, they the Sabians. They start taking their culture, now they just, like, not saying that other heathens don't do homosexual acts, but nobody's a big homosexual than her oppressor, right? So now he makes it like what they used to do that might have been like a little pause, he make it just completely gay. He make it 100% gay. Some of the stuff be like, okay, I don't know why you doing that. Keep that to yourself over there. But no, he gonna say, nope, this ain't gay enough. We gotta what they say, everybody saying that 10X, they got a 10X it now. They got a 10X that homosexuality, right? And here's the next part over here, the 10 lost tribes of Israel. The story of De Torres addressing a native tribe in Hebrew after Columbus' landfall in San Salvador is a product of Columbus's writings. De Torres is believed to have discovered the turkey and named it after the Hebrew Suki, parrot of the Bible, though this is highly likely because the bird is referred to a pavo, turkey in Arabic. Still another legend has him return to Spain and smoked tobacco there, was led to him being accused of witchcraft by the Inquisition. So there's a story in Columbus' writings that said that when he landed in San Salvador, he was speaking Hebrew to the tribes. But they don't, when it's like you go to his Columbus writings, they try to say, well, that was falsified. All the stuff that says black people were Israelites is falsified. If y'all know, it's a common thing. All right. Anybody got any questions on that at all? All right. Can anybody prove the Exodus at all? Anybody know how to prove the Exodus happened? Anybody?
So like y'all
Go ahead.
when they crossed the Red Sea, on the other side, they put 12 stones representing 12 representing the 12 tribes on those shores. So
I mean, that's true, but those rocks probably been kind of washed away a little bit. You know what I'm saying? There might be other rocks over there. But I mean, like, what's the archaeological way, I guess you could say? How you prove it in archaeology? Go ahead.
The Egyptians and the Israelites back in the day, they went into the Red Sea. They sent the submarines and the submersibles into the Red Sea, and they found the chariot wheels at the bottom of the Red Sea, along with some weapons and swords and spears and all those type of things. You know what I'm saying? In the Red Sea.
Get that brother in. That brother in. He knows something. Where you learn that at?
So like y'all one.
Go ahead.
So like y'all, if I may, you know what I'm saying? Only reason I know these things, my mom was a librarian and I'm a bookworm, so that's how I know a lot of this stuff.
Got you. When I used to drive trucks, I used to sit back and just watch documentaries and stuff like that. But I got a few pictures right here. Some chariots right here. This is one. I don't know why I won't let it go like full screen for some reason. There's another one right here. This is a wheel. It was covered like it was cause you know this is, you know what I'm saying? That's a wheel. It was covered in gold. Like it was it was like you got something that's covered in gold, you know they say it's dipped in gold, and the inside of it was wood. So then you start to see coral getting all around these things here. What's this right here? So you start seeing like weapons, because over time, what happens is coral is like it's like you know how everything gets broken down. Everything that's organic gets broken down. Coral is what does that in the sea. So basically, what happens is when the coral gets there, and it gets to the to whatever object it is, especially if it's organic, it makes it so that it breaks it down. But then what coral does, it becomes the same shape as that object. So you're gonna look here, so I can find some more. Here go another wheel. It's another wheel right here. What else you got? You know, just more objects under the sea that they have. It's just so many things that they had to show them that, you know, that it actually did happen. All right. There's another one right here. Wheels and everything. Just show the chariots that the Egyptians had. They got drowned in the sea. Something I wanted to bring up. Okay. All right. Many people have said that if Ron Wyatt was a liar, he was the most convincing liar ever. It's the person that found some of these chariots, right? His findings always seem to match the Bible right on. Here are a few examples of the researchers' findings. On the chariots and the wheels of the Gulf the Aqaba, which match biblical accounts. Exodus 14:25. Hold on, let me get that here, because you're going to read the New King James Version. Exodus 14:25. And took off their chariot wheels, that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. Let me go to the one before that. Okay, we'll go to 22. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground. This is after the Red Sea got parted, right? And the waters were a wall unto them on the right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked into the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of the fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians. So he's seeing through all of this stuff that was going on, he's seen the armies of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels that drave them heavily. So the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the waters come again under the Egyptians, upon their chariots and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it. And the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots, and the horsemen and all of the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not as much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on the right and on the left. Thus saith the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. Right? So now he did that. So he made the waters cover over all of them. So this is what happened to those chariots, right? And you can find those chariots in the sea, covered in coral, right? Covered up. So let's see, not a single chariot was found by White had wheels on it. Also of the many, many wheels which have been discovered, none were attached to chariots. This could be a coincidence, since the chariots surely went through some trauma with being crushed by the sea. However, even the original biblical transcripts translates to say that the wheels were removed. So the biblical said they got the wheels removed from them, right? Most of the clumps are located on the Egyptian side, presumably, and per Bible, the Bible says on that side, most of them are going to be on that side, the point of entry. The source from a researcher who scoured the sea says that the majority of the items found, chariots, wheels, etc., were found on the Egyptian side. What does that mean? Well, the Egyptians never made it across the 8-mile span from one side of the sea to the other. In fact, the Bible says that the sea returned to its full depth while the Egyptians were fleeing into it. So the artifacts should be mostly found on the side closest to where the Egyptians entered, and they were. So this is why hasn't anyone removed these precious artifacts from the sea? This has definitely been a goal. However, these wheels and chariots are thousands of years old, and according to researchers, they're not able to remove them without causing them to deteriorate. In the case of the gold wheel, round wire, and the sons attempted to remove it, and it began to crumble. This is because the wheel is not entirely made of gold, but wood that has a gold coat, veneer. So while the gold kept it from being eaten by coral, it's still made of deteriorating wood. The wood inside the golden layer, rotted away over time, leaving it impossible to extract without ruining the will permanently. So they can't even remove it. They want to remove it and put it to like a museum or something, but they can't because they'll destroy the will. So as they started trying to remove it, it started to crumble in their hands, right? So, you know, this is just a couple proof. Anybody know of anything else that you can prove that's archaeology? Anybody else know? Go ahead.
You talking about archaeology of leaving Egypt, or just archaeology about Israel?
Just archaeology in general.
So like y'all want if I may.
Go ahead.
One thing that's in plain sight that people don't even consider, those the pyramids throughout the Central and South America.
Mm-hmm.
Those pyramids are the same construction as the pyramids on the Gaza Strip. A lot.
God, you're absolutely right. They're made with the same math that was obviously done by the same people, right? Because you know there's more pyramids over on this side of America, on this side of the Atlantic than it is on the other side. They're just bigger over there. They stand out more because you know the pyramids built over there was built through slave labor. So you force people to work, basically, right? But over here they were made for like religious purposes and just to have something to do. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't made off of. It wasn't made based off of forced slavery, basically. And then two, they were made for like you have to think why would they make the pyramids? The pyramids were made for the pharaohs so they can like have like a kingdom to heaven or whatever, like something to go into the afterworld. They were made in like representation for them. So this king that he said, and Pharaoh, like the time of Egyptians, they were gods on earth, right? They were considered gods. So that's why they needed to have something so big or whatever to show that they were a god. You know what I'm saying? Something that would last forever. You got me? All right, that's a good one. You got any more?
Go
ahead.
If I may, throughout Mexico, and especially in Mexico City, if you know where to look, you can find the ancient seal of David, the Don Dawada, all throughout Central and South America, especially in Mexico City. If you know you look at
mm-hmm. God. A lot of it has been, taken away. They hide it or whatever. But they do have the Dawada symbol all over Mexico, because like I said, they were Israelites. Anybody know, I give you an when I was looking for, anybody know anything about Noah's Ark?
So like y'all
Go ahead.
So if I may, they say that Noah's Ark is on top of one of these mountains, and scientists have, used satellite images to trace out what they would consider to be Noah's Ark based on the measurements according to the Bible on Mount Ararat.
Yep, you're right. They had found it. So people, all the time they try to say, the Bible didn't happen, but they found the ark. And then they tested it and seen that it was petrified wood. This is it right here. See that? Go ahead.
What you just brought out is so heavy about Noah's Ark, and how people say that the Bible ain't real and the flood never happened. But all cultures, all civilizations have that same flood story.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody can't say the same thing and it not be true. You know what I'm saying? Especially something of that magnitude, when you talking about the whole earth being flooded. Those
mm-hmm.
records, you know what I'm saying, from Japan all the way into the the Colorado River, the caves of the Colorado River over there, you got records of the flood and the flood happening and the flood stage of it actually, you know what I'm saying, dropping so people can inhabit the land again.
Yep, you got it all over. I'm trying to find it. Here go one that's a big one that a lot of people may not know about it. Okay. Has anybody ever heard of the Epic of Gilgamesh? Anybody heard of the Epic of Gilgamesh?
Oh, Salaki, I don't want. The Epic of Gilgamesh is an Edomite version of the story of Nimrod. Salaki.
Not this one. I know you're talking about. That's not this one though. Well, at least not the part I'm bringing. I don't know the whole story. There was like several tablets of it.
Salaki, I don't want.
Go ahead.
You talking about the story when he battled with Gideon?
No, like I said, I don't know the whole story of it off the top of my head, but it tells different. There's different tablets, right? The one I'm referring to is the one that's talking about. Okay, it's talking about. Let me find it on here. So like I got glasses, I still can't see nothing. Alright.
So I can say about me.
Go ahead.
I don't know, sir. Other folks, they refer to the Epic of Gilgamesh to say that it precedes the story of Noah's Ark. And in fact, it was a plagiarization. And they used different names like Enki and Enlil, Enkidu. Mm-hmm. It was back in, I think it was the 3rd, 2nd century in Mesopotamia. But it's pretty much, it's heathen fantasy, sir.
Yeah, kind of. That's the complete thing of it is. But, there's one part of it that it shows it's about the same flood story. Because you got to think of it as, the story was told through everybody because everybody, his people survived from the flood. So everybody wrote about surviving the flood story. It's in pretty much every culture about the flood, right? A great deluge, right? So this is in tablet 11, right? And Gilgamesh observes, let me see, this is the part. Let me go to. Okay. Trying to get to the point of it. Okay. Trying to get to one of the part about the flood and then. 1 second. Okay, I'm trying to find that part. Okay, can't seem to find it. But basically, that's where it says like relationship to the Bible. We can go to cements that the Genesis flood narrative matches that in Gilgamesh so closely that few doubt it derives from a Mesopotamian account. What is particularly noticeable is the way the Genesis flood story follows the Gilgamesh flood tale, point by point and in the same order, and even when the story permits other alternatives. In 2001, Torah commentary released on behalf of the conservative movement of Judaism, rabbinic scholar Robert Wexler stated the most likely assumptions that we can make is that both Genesis and Gilgamesh drew the material from a common tradition about the flood that existed in Mesopotamia. These stories diverge in the retelling. Zezudra and Noah are the respective heroes of the Sumerian, Akkadian, and biblical flood legends of the ancient Near East, right? So, who was born in Sumeria? That's a question. Who was born in Sumeria? That's in the Bible. Where the scholars at? Who was born in ancient Sumeria? Or I'm sorry, ancient or Mesopotamia. Does that help?
Sir.
Go ahead. I already know you know, y'all, you die. I know you know. Let me get somebody else. Go ahead. Who was Azar?
Salaka, sir.
Go ahead.
Me. You know, it was a great hunter. The days escaping right now, but I know that the Bible was saying to say the second coming of that great. I spit my tongue out, Salaka.
No, that's not it. Come on. Anybody else?
Salaka, sir.
Go ahead.
Is it Nimrod?
No, not Nimrod. You gonna feel bad you don't know this. All right, go ahead, y'all. You die.
Salaki, other one. You say ancient Mesopotamia.
Yeah, who was born there?
I would say just off of, thinking about the ancient time, that would be Abraham.
There you go. Get a brother hand. Abraham was born there. See that? He was born there. So, like I said, at this time, like when Abraham was around, the world, like the people wasn't so many. You get what I'm saying? It might have been, I'm just throwing numbers out, so don't get the numbers crazy, but it was probably not even a fifth of the same amount of people that it is now. So it's the earth and people are so much smaller than they are right now. You get what I'm saying? So like these families, like even though they're tribes, they may be fighting, they may be doing this, doing that, they're relatively smaller than they are right now. You get what I'm saying? So at this time, stories are a lot of times more similar than people think that they are. You know what I'm saying? They would be a lot more similar because they're told from the same source. Because I remember when Noah came off the ark, he taught all of his sons, the commandments. He taught them, how to serve God. He taught them all of that. Just when you see, like when Abraham, when he told that one king that his wife was his sister, then he had a dream. The Most High gave me, said, if you lay with this woman, there's going to be some issues. And he started saying, why you lie to me? Because he knew of the Most High God. Because, even though he might have been a heathen and celebrate, doing other things, he's been taught in his lineage about the God that came and, destroyed everything. He's been taught that. A lot of times what they do is, what they would do a lot of times is like they would make one God, first, it started being one God, and then they started making all of these, other gods that go along with it. And then eventually the one God that was the Most High, that they were saying they thought they were serving becomes something else, somebody else. Now it's the Son. You get what I'm saying? But at the beginning, that was the Most High. You get what I mean? That was the Most High that they were serving, even though they was heathens, because they was taught that from Moses. I'm sorry, not Moses. Through Noah. They was taught the Most High was God. So then all of a sudden they just started bastardizing, putting all the other guys. This person, like Nimrod, he was a great person. So now he got to be a guy too. He right there with everybody. And then over time it just starts getting muddy. And all of a sudden now that's somebody else, right? And that's why he said, Most High said he gave, that's why we his God, because he knew that we the only ones that can serve him the right way. Get what I'm saying? Let me see here. All right. All right. Anybody else know of anything else? What's some stuff in the Middle East that tells you that the Bible happened? I know you know Yahanna. Come on with it. Go ahead. Y'all, you done. Yeah, you don't know anything else?
It's so many different things that we can point to let us know that the Bible is real. You know, I start out with Egypt, ancient Egypt. You know what I'm saying, on that Nile River Valley. What we know as the Nile River Valley today. We look at it as a desert, but in ancient times when we were living in that land and slaves in that land, that whole thing was green. You know what I'm saying? But once we left the land, you know, the Most High, you know what I'm saying, he took all the nourishment away from there. Another thing in that same place, you know, it's a place called Jerusalem that got stacked, that is overrun by heathens right now. And then you got another group of people called the Israelites. They are worshiping a rock, but they call themselves, you know what I'm saying, taking on the customs and traditions of Israel, but they are worshiping a rock.
Good. That's good. Let me see what I was about to say about Egypt. I got to do a little bit more research on it to kind of prove it, but this even shows you how even more innovative blacks and Hispanics was. In Egypt, a lot of, one thing they said that was in those pyramids at the bottom of it, right? It was all of the stuff necessary to make batteries, right? Like you gotta have like sulfur and all the different chemicals to make batteries. So a lot of times what I was even shown one time is that the pyramids was actually power plants. They give power, they actually gave power. So I gotta do a little more research on it to prove it, and I'll get a little bit more, probably get some counsel on it, just want to make sure I'm teaching accurate, but they were saying that they found all of the necessary chemicals to make batteries inside of the pyramids. So it wouldn't surprise me, because who built the pyramids? Israel, right? Israelites built the pyramids. Who invented everything? Electricity. Who invented all of that? Blacks and Hispanics invented all these things. So why couldn't we have done it in Egypt? Just like America today, right? If we didn't have writing and, you know, internet and books, right? Who would you think invented the stoplight, the television? You would think America invented these things, right? But they don't tell you that the slaves were the ones that invented things, right? That's what happened in Egypt. We don't get credit for the stuff that we made in Egypt because we were the slaves. Just like we don't get credit for the things we make here, that all goes to your slave master, which is America. You understand? So, all right. Let me go to the one here. Has anybody ever heard of the Moabite stone? Anybody ever heard of it before? All right, let's go to it. In 1868, a missionary in Jerusalem found a stone tablet for sale that appeared to be from ancient times. The sellers broke the tablet into a number of pieces to sell them one at a time to make more money. Fortunately, a copy of the tablet was made prior to the break. On the tablet is a text written in Moabite dating to the 9th century BC. It was perhaps a victory stone erected by King Mesha to commemorate his military achievements. The text begins, I am Mesha, son of Chemosh, king of Moab. Prominent in the text is the king's version of a war fought with Israel in 850 BC, in which Moab revolted against King Jehoram of the northern kingdom of Israel soon after the death of Ahab. Of particular interest is that the Bible records the same incident in 2 Kings 3. The accounts differ in perspective. Mesha emphasized his victories over Israel in capturing the cities under Israelite control. The biblical writer, to the contrary, highlights Israel's successful counterattacks against the Moabites. So, can somebody go to that 2 Kings and 3 for me? Somebody read that for me?
Salakia, sir.
Go ahead.
What was the verse again?
2 Kings chapter 3.
All right, I got it.
Go ahead.
Okay. 2 Kings chapter 3 and 1. Now, Jehoram, the son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel in Samaria. The 18th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and reigned 12 years.
Keep going.
Verse 2. And he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord, but not like his father and like his mother, for he put away the image of all that his father had made.
So Ahab, he started putting in images of, Baal back in, his time as kingdom. And he is one of the, he was like one of the final nails in the coffin of Israel losing the kingdom. All right. It started with Solomon because Solomon started getting with the heathen women and started doing that. But then Ahab was the next one to do the same thing. Keep going.
Verse 3. Nevertheless, he cleaved unto the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therefrom.
All right, keep going.
Verse 4. And Mesha, king of Moab, was a sheep master and rendered unto the king of Israel 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with the wool. Verse 5. But it came to pass when Ahab was dead that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel.
So it just happened, when King Ahab died, Moab wanted to get some power. Keep going.
Verse 6. And King Jehoram went out of Samaria at the same time and numbered all Israel.
Keep going.
Verse 7. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, saying, the king of Moab hath rebelled against me. Wilt thou go with me against Moab to battle? And he said, I will go up. I am as thou art, my people as thy people, and my horses as thy horses.
So, he went to, this is when the southern and northern kingdom was coming back. So he said, we are the same people, so we went to go fight. All right, keep going.
Verse 8. And he said, which way shall we go up? And he answered, the way through the wilderness of Edom.
Keep on.
Verse 9. So the king of Israel went, and the king of Judah, and the king of Edom, and they fetched a compass of 7 days' journey. And there was no water for the host, and for the cattle that followed them.
Keep on.
Verse 10. And the king of Israel said, Alas, that the Lord hath called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. 11. But Jehoshaphat said, Is there not here a prophet of the Lord, that we may inquire of him? That we may inquire of the Lord by him? And one of the kings of Israel's servants answered and said, Here is Elisha, the son of Shaphat, which poured water on the hands of Elijah.
Because Elisha was like the next person after Elijah, right? Oh, wait, I can't remember the slide. I might be over speaking. It was Elisha, then it was Elijah, I believe, or it was the opposite. I can't remember exactly. But one of them succeeded the next one. Keep going.
Verse 12. And Jehoshaphat said, The word of the Lord is with him. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. 13. And Elisha said unto the king of Israel, What have I to do with thee? Get thee to the prophets of thy father, and to the prophets of thy mother. And the king of Israel said unto him, Nay, for the Lord hath called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab.
Keep going.
14. And Elisha said, As the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, surely were it not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat the king of Judah, I would not look toward thee, nor see thee.
Okay, keep going.
15. 15. But now bring me a minstrel. And it came to pass, when the minstrel played, and the hand of the Lord came upon him.
Right, stop right there. Go down to go to verse 20.
Verse 20. And it came to pass in the morning, when the meat offering was offered, that behold, there came water by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. 21. And when all the Moabites heard that the kings were up to fight against them, they gathered all that were able to come upward and stood in the border.
All right. So now the Moabites, they hear that the kings all come to fight against them, right? So they got everybody, all the soldiers and all of them, they stood up in the border to protect themselves, right? Keep going.
22. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water, and the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood.
Keep going.
23. And they said, This is blood. The kings are surely slain, and they have smitten one another. Now, therefore, Moab to the spoil.
Okay. Now they said this is blood all over this water, right? So they said the kings must have killed each other. They knew he was all fighting against each other. Keep going.
24. And when they came to the camp of Israel, the Israelites rose up and smote the Moabites, so that they fled before them. But they went forward, smiting the Moabites, even in their country.
So it was like a trick that we had did. Because, you know, anybody know what kind of warfare this is? Anybody know the name of this? Go ahead.
Guerrilla warfare.
There you go. Guerrilla warfare. We invented guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare taught was the Native Americans taught our so-called oppressor guerrilla warfare. This is what this is, guerrilla warfare. They make them think that they were, blood. They had killed themselves. We fought each other in the war. And when they came and got overconfident, we came in and started, killing them. Keep going.
Okay. 25. And they beat down the cities, and on every good piece of land cast every man his stone, and filled it. And they stopped all the wells of water, and felled all the good trees. Only in Kirhasareth left they the stones thereof. Howbeit slingers went about it and smote it.
Keep going.
26. And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too sore for him, he took with him 700 men that drew swords to break through even unto the king of Edom, but they could not.
They tried to get, to the king of Edom after this, because we basically whooped him, beat the crap out of him, right? Hold on a second. All right. Shalom, sis. All right, keep going.
27. Then he took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead, and offered him for a burnt offering unto the wall. And there was a great indignation against Israel, that they departed from him and returned to their own land.
So the king of Moab, because he was losing the war, he took his eldest son and he burnt him. Right? Burnt him in front of him, burnt him and everything. And so because he was losing that war. And he did that. Now he had great hatred towards Israel. That's why, of course, in his writings he said that he won, right? Trying to get the translation of it. One second. Okay, trying to get. Okay, this is a summary of the Moabite stone. The Moabite stone is written in the first person, the speaker being Mesha, king of Moab. Mesha ruled from about 850 BCE to the 9th century BCE. Moab was located east of ancient Israel and Judah across the Dead Sea. To the south of Moab was Edom, and to the north of Moab was Ammon. But Edom is the so-called oppressor. Ammon is the Japanese. They were at the north of Moab, and Moab is the so-called Chinese man, right? The inscription opens by describing who Mesha is. In addition, the purpose of the stone itself is expressed because he, Kamash, the Moabite deity, also written as Kamos, delivered me from all assaults, and because he let me see my desire upon all my adversaries. The adversaries specified as Israel, for King Omri of Israel had captured portions of Moab around the time when the son of Omri was king. Mesha began to recapture lost territory, rebuilding, slaying inhabitants, and taking Israelite slaves. The next section of the text describes various things which Mesha claims to have accomplished for the greater good: rebuilding towns, rebuilding cisterns for water, mending roads, and providing land for shepherds. Unfortunately, the final 5 lines of the text are unclear and broken. Through conjecture, it is most likely that these lines further lead to alliances established by Mesha or other campaigns completed by Mesha. So, let me see here. So here's the text of it. I am Misha, son of Chemos, the king of Moab from Debon. My father was king over Moab for 30 years, and I was king after my father. In the Carco, I made this high place for Chemos, because he has delivered me from all kings, and because he has made me look down on all my enemies. Omri was the king of Israel, and he oppressed Moab for many days. For Chemos was angry with this land, and his son succeeded him. And he said, he too I will oppress Moab. In my days he did so, but I looked down on him and his house. And Israel has gone to ruin. Yes, it has gone to ruin forever. Omri has taken possession of my whole land of Medeba, and lived there in his days, and half the days of his son 40 years. But Chemos restored it in my days, and I built Baal Meon, and I made it a water reservoir, and I built Kiriathon. So this is, he's talking about Jehoram. That's who Omri is. Because, you know, like, we got, like, names for the people. Like, in every culture, the name is going to be a different type of name. You get what I'm saying? So, like in, you know, if you got to look up Jesus' name, his name is actually Joshua. That's his real name, Joshua. It's pronounced as, if you look up Joshua in ancient, it's written the same way Christ's name is in Hebrew. Yahawashah, right? That's what Joshua's name is. And you can look in the New Testament, it's just talking about what it says Jesus, but it's talking about what Joshua did. You know what I'm saying? And then as you keep going, then you go like the Arabic, Jesus' name is Isa, right? Everybody has a different name for, you know, translation of it, right? So we got names for all of the people that's in the Bible, but they probably it's hard to find which one is which because their name's something different, right? So, and the men of Gad lived in the land of Ataroth, and from ancient times, and the king of Israel built Ataroth for himself. And I fought against the city, and I captured and I killed all the people from the city as sacrifice for Chemos and for Moab. And I brought back the fire hearth of Dado from there, and I hauled it before the face of Chemos and Kiriath. And I made the men of Sharon live there, as well as the men of Maharet. And Chemos said to me, go take Nebo from Israel. And I went in the night, and I fought against it from the break of dawn until noon. And I took it, and I killed this whole population, 7,000 male citizens and aliens, female citizens and aliens, and serving girls, for I had put it to the band of Ashtar, Chemos. And from there I took the vessels of Yahweh, and I hauled them from the face of Chemos. And the king of Israel had built Jahaz and stayed there during his campaigns against me. And Chemos drove him away before my face. And I took 200 men from Moab, all his division, and I led it up to Jahaz, and I had taken it in order to add it to Dibon. I have built Arco, the wall of the woods, and the wall of the citadel. And I have built its gates, and I have built its towers, and I have built the house of the king. And I have made the double reservoir for the spring in the innermost of the city. Now there was no cistern in the innermost of the city, Carco. And I said to all of the people, make each one of you a cistern in this house. And I cut the moat. I'm trying to get to the part. So he's just talking about how he just came in and destroyed all of Israel, right? But you know that's not true because biblical narrative is always more accurate than other places because the biblical, because we're telling the story of basically what happened. We tell the good and the bad, but like with other cultures, they go around talking about something that they did, even though this may have not even happened or everything even close is happening. They make themselves be, you know, puffed up so that they can be worshipped. Like he's the son of Chemos, which is supposed to be a god in Moabite cultures, right? But Chemos was just a man of Moab. He just was a regular man. Guess if you look up, what's his name? What is it here? Okay. Trying to see, cause it's that's what they came from. That's the abomination. Look up Chemosh. That's the abomination of Moab, right? Chemosh. But Chemosh was really a Moabite. Really, he was a Moabite. That's all he really was. He was just a Moabite that got put into kingdomship. He was just a Moabite, like somebody that was important to the Moabites. That's all he really was. And now he became, deified, pretty much. So, all right. Was it 8:54? Anybody got any questions or comments at all?
So like you, sir.
Oh, yeah?
It was going to say a real heavy class at the water, on St. Christ.
Also, the water, man. The water. All right. Anybody else? With that, pass the class over to priest and officer in Pashkaya.
This is I.S.U.P.K security announcements. We are the I.S.U.P.K start our one West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for a new brother and sister. When a new brother and sister come into the school, they are living for 6 months. They are here to be saluted only. They are here to set themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6 month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, the book of Numbers, chapter 18, verse 21, and the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 8 to 10. My Ishra means 10 in the Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Give to the church department of teacher. Priest bonds, spiritual offer for priests not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you like to give. Next holy convocation, the feast of dedication, feast of Hanukkah. It will be the space of 8 days starting November 28th, Sunday, sundown. And you also can find this in the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 4, chapter 52, verse 61. Remind Akim to check the bulletin board in the hallway. If anyone wants to be a trooper in the school, start wearing all black, boots, shirt, pant, headband, or scarf. And to also Google the address every time you are headed to the school. That is 3353 Glenroy Road, Decatur, Georgia. With that, give us to the salute to men and the teacher of men in Israel. Almighty Sabbat, Almighty, Barak, Yahweh Shem Yahshua.
Yahweh Shem Yahshua.
Well, I said in Hebrew, may the Most High in the name of Christ bless you. Yap Yom Matap, your hands down. Sorry. Turn to the sisters, Sister Martin. You have your head at a 45-degree angle with your right hand on your left, laps together, head down, shame face to the Lord. When I say Barak, just put your right hand on your chest. Give one church salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, Almighty Sabbat, Almighty, Barak, Yahweh Shema Alatham B'Hashem Yahushua.
Yahweh Shema Alatham B'Hashem Yahushua.
Okay, we'll just say it in Hebrew. May the Most High watch over you in the name of Christ. Yat Yom Matap, hands down, class is missed.